Looking at the story of the woman at the well in John chapter 4, we can see a few things right on the surface. In fact, she comes to the well at what the Bible says is the 6th hour. We find Jesus already waiting for her there. What's the 6th hour? Well, this would have been the midpoint of the day, where the sun was the hottest and the brightest. If anybody ever did any outdoor sports like track and field or baseball, and you had a game or a match in the middle of the day, you would know that feeling of the sun coming hot on your face. You feel like you're melting. You're so thirsty. This is the point at which she decided to come draw her water. Now, this was not typical behavior for a woman at this time. In fact, all the women came early in the morning. They would have traveled together in a pack. Like girls often go off to the washroom all together so they can talk and be with each other. But they would have gone to get water in the morning together. And here she is, all by herself in the heat of the day. We can infer a couple things from this. One, either she's ashamed and doesn't want to be seen by these women, or these women are embarrassed of her and avoiding her. Some people like that we're wearing masks right now during COVID because they feel like they can avoid certain people that they didn't want to see before. And here's this woman at the well. She's going at a different time of day, so she doesn't have to put up with their gossip, or she doesn't have to feel their judgments on her. And she encounters someone who could judge her, but doesn't. Someone who decides to love her instead. Jesus. See, she had all these internal wounds. These hurts and wounds that would have kept her from receiving his love. Except Jesus speaks straight into it. This is what he says. She says, "Sir, give me this water so I will not be thirsty or have to come here to draw water." And verse 16, Jesus said to her, "Go, call your husband and come here." Jesus is not trying to humiliate her. He's not trying to bring up some ghost of Christmas past. But what she's trying to do is he's trying to speak straight into her woundedness. So in the area where she's the most broken, where she feels the most unlovable, he will show her, "I love you." And she answers him and says, "I have no husband." Jesus said to her, "You're right in saying I have no husband. In fact, you have 5 husbands, and the man you are living with now is not your husband." So we can see from this that this woman, she was either divorced 5 times, and in that culture, women could not divorce men. Men only had the right to divorce women. So she would have been rejected, thrown out, used and abused 5 times over. Or maybe she was widowed 5 times. If that's the case, or some combination of both, people would think that woman has a curse. Stay away from her. You don't want to end up being the 6th or 7th or 8th husband of hers. In that culture, marriage was so important. It's not like today where women could maybe create their own life apart from marriage. In that culture, if you were a woman and you were not married, there was a shame that came with that. There was an insecurity that came with that, financially, emotionally, in every way. You had no one to provide for you, no one to ensure your future. This was a woman acquainted with rejection, acquainted with grief, acquainted with sadness and shame. And Jesus comes and he speaks into the center of her woundedness. See, up until this point, Jesus was revealing who he was, that he was the living water, that he was all she needed. And when she says, "Sir, give me this living water," Jesus knows that if at this point she accepts him, that at the back of her head, there might always be this question, if he only knew, ... then what? If he only knew that I've had 5 husbands and the man I'm living with now is not my husband. If he only knew about my brokenness, then he wouldn't love me. If he only knew, what is it in your mind? What is it in my life that is the if he only knew? If he only knew about your addiction. if he only knew about your workaholism, about your porn addiction, if he only knew about your broken relationship after broken relationship after broken relationship, if he only knew, then he wouldn't love me. But you see, Jesus is showing her something that was true about her and that is true about each of us. He knows us and he loves us. He sees the good, the bad, and the hideously ugly in each of our lives. And he loves and loves and loves us. And his invitation goes out with full knowledge of who it's going to. He knows her and he loves her. And he knows you and he loves you just as we are and just where we are. Here was a man who had every reason to reject her. And yet she finds full acceptance with him. And so do you, and so do I. What is your if only? Don't let that keep you from Jesus, because it's not keeping Jesus from coming to you.